on the Raider Nation? It's your boy Dub Raider. Alongside me is Chris from Protect Shield Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Raider Nation Weekly Wire. In this episode, we're going to cover, like always, Chris's weekly word. Basically, we're going to be going down the list of the little action that the Raiders have put out as far as free agency, pickups, drops, whatever it is. Chris is going to give us his knowledge of these topics, give us the information that we need in order for us to understand who we got, who we lost, and where we're at with the team. Also, we're going to incorporate a new topic for the Weekly Wire, and it is called Football 101. What Football 101 is basically talking about the basics of football. This week we're going to talk about the importance of player depth, the added players, the second string, third strings, and everything else. But we'll get to that later. First, I'd like to say hello to my friend Chris. Chris, thanks for being with us again. How you feeling today, my brother?
Feeling great, man. Feeling great. Like I said, this is one of my favorite times of the week, man. Just being able to sit down and talk to you on this show, and being able to just talk ball with you and be able to share the little bit of knowledge that I have, man. So I absolutely I enjoy it, man.
No, my friend. You have an extensive. You are like the what is it called, the encyclopedia, the walking encyclopedia of NFL, at least in my eyes.
Well, because I appreciate that. But I will have to say, my counterpart, 1/3 of the Raider War Room, Mr. Severe, he's literally the encyclopedia. He has a Rain Man type memory about all these little nuggets about the NFL and Raiders. Like, I don't know how he remembers everything. Like, you think I'm an encyclopedia, he literally knows or remembers everything. So shout out to my brother Severe, man.
Shout out Severe. Is that the reason why he's won the draft twice in a row? Man,
he knows some kind of IT geek in the background that cheats on that little mock draft thing, man. But salute to him. I'm coming back with a vengeance.
Oh, that's good, man. Well, I'm hoping to see it, because what I'm hoping for you to do, have you guys been keeping track of these mock drafts? Like, are you keeping a copy of it?
Yeah. I believe 805 is keeping. I know I'm keeping track of my team, because like that week one, I thought I won, but the chat spoke. And then last week, my team was on fire. Like, I'm like, oh, this team's gonna be hard to beat. And then when Severe went, the daggone computer gave him all kinds of like trades that were just unrealistic, and really? I couldn't compete against the computer assistance that he got. But yeah, it's been fun, man. Man, salute to my guys. We have so much fun on that show, man, and I know we'll probably segue to it at some point, but the show that you did with my brother 805, man, it was beautiful, man.
Oh yeah, man, it was so much fun. Salute to 805. Salute. Thanks, brother, for your time. It was amazing. He is also a very knowledgeable individual.
Absolutely.
And he can speak about every topic.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, and I really gravitate to individuals like that, because I could learn so much.
For sure.
Just like I learned from you, I learned a lot from him. And it was just amazing. And now the only one that's left is Severe. Hopefully, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to do it in the next few weeks, because I already have some lined up. But Severe, just to let you know, you are coming up, my brother. I will hit you up, and we will be having that interview, because I want the Raider Nation to know who the Severe Raider is. So, well, let's get back on point here. Again, our first segment is Chris's weekly word. Basically, like I mentioned earlier, what Chris's weekly word is basically just brief news information of what's been happening with the Raider organization, the Raider Nation. We ask these questions. Chris breaks it down, gives us a little bit more information, maybe that we didn't know, or just, to reiterate what we already know. So the topics, obviously, right now, everything revolves around free agency, because everybody's been picking up Players have been coming, players have been going, and unfortunately our team has been a bit stagnant.
Yeah.
In my eyes, I don't see that as a bad thing because in years past, we've dropped cash left and right to get all these players, and it's really, the majority of the time hasn't really worked for us. So now I see our leadership is playing more a game of chess than checkers. You know, not just let's gobble everything up and see what happens. You know, now they're kind of like, okay, let's take our time and, you know, maneuver here and there. And, you know, and those are basically the thing that I guess is worrying a lot of the Raider Nation, you know, that we're not making any moves. What's going on? You know, all the other teams are picking up players left and right. They're taking players away from us. So, you know, I just want to get a little information of what's been going on with the Raider Nation. So, Chris, let's talk about our free agency signings. I know we picked up running back Raheem Mostert last week, but he signed, was it this week or the end of last week, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was last week, I believe, Yeah,
it became official, and they gave him, what is it, a 2-year contract?
I believe 1 year, actually.
So he got a prove-it contract as well. Okay. That's good. See, and that's what I mean. That's what our leadership is doing. They're giving the bag to these players, you know, and just say, let's see what happens. But they did give them a pretty hefty. Yeah,
it wasn't too bad. The thing with Mostert is, the kid can play. He's dynamic. He's fast as all get out. You know, so he's a home run hitter that we probably haven't had since Darren McFadden.
Right.
If you remember how Darren McFadden could just get a ball and just take it to the house, you know, he just had that explosion. That's how Mostert is, and ironically, you know, because McFadden had injury issues, you know, Mostert's kind of the same way. You know, he's a guy that has had injury issues, but I think it was 2 years ago. You know, I think he like was one of the leaders in touchdowns in the NFL. I mean, he was very dynamic.
Yeah, that was his Pro Bowl year, correct?
Yeah. So I'm sure he still has it in him, you know, because the thing is, you know, in Miami, you know, he had a very creative coach in Mike McDaniel. And I'm hoping, you know, with Chip Kelly, you know, being a creative guy himself, knowing how to use guys in space and things like that, you know, we could see some of the same results with him as well. But the key is, you know, staying healthy, you know, not running them into the ground, not pounding the ball with them to death, kind of like how we did Josh Jacobs, but, you know, having a good rotation and, you know, using them in strategic moments.
And then also he has hands, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
He can catch the ball. He can catch the ball at the backfield. And again, you know, he's one of those guys that if you use him creatively and get him in space, it's gonna be a lot for some defenses to handle. I mean, he's just always been that home run guy that if you don't scoop him up and tackle him, short tackle him, he can be a thorn in your side, and that's kind of. You know, that's kind of a weapon we need. So, you know, I like that prove-it deal that we got for him, and, you know, we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, and then we still have, what, I think 1 or 2 running backs, right? In that room?
So we still have Zamir White. We still have Dylan Labe. I believe we still have Sincere McCormick on the roster. So we still have a couple guys there, but that there's a lot to be desired, you know, for that room.
Of course.
So we're definitely going to have to take a look at it in draft day, you know. But the good thing is there's a lot of beasts at that running back position, you know, in this draft. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
I've been hearing that this is a high running back draft. That there's a lot of good running backs,
talent
out there to be able to pick from, and not necessarily in the first 2 rounds. We can get them later in the rounds. Do you think that based on what Mostert has done in the past, and obviously having that setback year last year with his injury, do you think he has more of a fire to come out and just say, you know what, I'm gonna ball out, you know, and I'm gonna kill it?
Yeah, no, I think so, because he had such a good year, you know, you know, a year ago, you know, a year removed from last year, you know, and guys have that pride, you know, like that was his first like real big year where, you know, he's probably like, okay, hey, I'm one of those guys, you know, one of those guys. So, you know, then bounce, you know, have a year after that where, it wasn't so good and he had some injuries. I'm sure that he's ready to put on full display what he can do. And I'm here for it, man. You know how it is, man. When guys are motivated, you see a whole different guy, because guys want to earn a bigger contract. So, I mean, he understands that, hey, if I come out here and ball out, I can still get, a couple nice paydays before it's time for me to retire. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he has two great things going for him: is motivation and opportunity.
Right, absolutely.
And him taking that and moving forward, I'm hoping he will have definitely success with us. And then with Chip Kelly, in the running the offense, I think we will definitely see some good things from him.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let me see what else. We signed this week some tight end. I don't even know who this dude is, man. I just saw a picture of him. Like, the Raiders signed, some tight end. I'm like, wait a minute, don't we already have two great tight ends?
So we did sign, tight end Ian Thomas. So Ian actually is he's a veteran. He was originally drafted back in 2018. Now he is a true blocking tight end. We have a Brock Bowers who's dynamic, who can catch the ball. That's a really offensive threat. Whereas Ian Thomas, is a big body, 6'4", 260. He's a guy that is, he does that dirty work. He's gonna block. He's gonna drive guys off the ball. And that's what he's known for, his blocking ability. So, we do have Michael Mayer. But honestly, when I first saw this signing, it makes me think, is Michael Mayer potentially going to be, draft bait? I don't know. Because Michael Mayer he's more than just a blocking tight end. Because Michael Mayer can also be a weapon on the offensive side of the ball. But, we just haven't seen it yet for Mayer, whether it's because of our offensive coordinator or whatever. So, but you always need, a couple good tight ends, specifically in the red zone, where we usually have trouble. So having another big body in the red zone who can block and also, if need be, win some of those one-on-one jump ball matchups, I'm good. I'm good with it. He was drafted, like I said, in the 4th round with Carolina. He's been there. He's a true veteran, man. So you can't never have too much, good leadership, good quality, blue collar guys, and that's exactly what he is.
Right. Oh, and that's great. The more the merrier, I think, because at the end of the day, we still have to see him play. He still has to come out and go to training camp, and that's where they'll know if he stays or he goes. So I think as long as they keep enough players out there to create competition,
that's exactly what it is, and he'll do that. Yeah. He'll bring it every day, and he has that. That Pete Carroll mentality. He's going to bring it every day. He's going to bring his lunch pail, clock in, work hard, clock out, go home.
Yeah, but I also thought the same thing when I heard about the signing.
Yeah,
is that this was kind of like Mayer's goodbye. We already got somebody to fill your shoes, so we're probably going to use you as bait to get maybe a draft pick or something.
It's possible. It is possible. I can't lie. I know a lot of people like Mayer. He hasn't really been a threat as of yet. And again, it might be because of our system in the past, and Chip Kelly might have a package for him and a vision for him, but we'll see.
And then do you think, as far as Mayer, do you think our leadership is maybe worried about his mental capacity, being that he had some issues last season, and maybe that's why they want to bring in more competition just in case if something goes awry again?
Possibly. I mean, at the end of the day, as a team, you got to protect yourself, and again, we always care about mental health and things like that. So we want to make sure that the player is good first. We want to make sure he gets the help that he needs. But from a player standpoint, we really depended on him last year. We went into the season, hey, we're going to have this 1-2 punch with him and Brock, and that's what we were wanting and needing. And then, for that to happen again, it's no fault of his, whatever he's going through, he has to work through it. But from a team perspective, we're like, okay, we can't get caught like that again, so we got to make sure we have the proper depth to help cover us, for situations like that. Because again, the NFL is not for everybody. He might be physically ready, but some guys just aren't ready, for a lot of the, the expectations that's put on you, like he's a guy that, we got a high draft pick in the second round. We traded up to get him. Everybody's not built for that pressure. And then, he's a young guy, maybe there was some ego or pride involved. Like, hey, I get drafted and the very next year they take another tight end in the first round. Like, we don't know. Like, again, I'm not speculating on, what it was from a mental capacity. And I don't even know if it was, it could have been anything. So, I don't even want to speculate, but, teams have to take a look at that. If I'm a new coach and I'm like, hey, Mike Mayer, he has a lot of potential, but I got to make sure I got something in place in case something like that happens again.
Correct. No, yeah, and that's what I thought initially. I just wanted some confirmation, and you basically gave it to me. The next player, what the hell's that dude's name? Leki Fatu, I believe.
Yep.
Leki Fatu. He's a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
He also got picked up on a prove-it deal, correct?
Yeah. So he's another guy that's going to bring in depth. The big thing about him, I mean, he's from I think he's from like the Bay Area, actually.
He's from Oakland.
Yep. So I figure he's from out there somewhere. Big boy. He's a big boy, and that's exactly what we needed. 6'5", 330. That's a lot of sandwich eating, man. That's a lot. That's a lot of chicken.
That's a lot of spam right there, brother.
Yeah, I'd hate to have to feed that dude, man. But 6'5", 330. A physical guy. Someone that's not going to get bullied up front. Exactly what we need. Because of course we got guys like Max and Kuntz that are quick and can move and get to the quarterback. This guy he's a run stopper. He's a guy that's gonna clog up the middle. Holes. So because how many times are we watching the game and the opposing running back is just running through the hole with not even getting touched. So we got a big fella like him, man. He's gonna clog that hole, clog the gap. And he's a depth piece, 'cause I'm not going to say he's the next coming of Richard Seymour or anything, but he's a guy that's going to bring competition. He's a big body. I like the pick, man. I like the pick.
No, and he fills a need.
For sure.
Which is what's important right now. It seems that that's what we're going for as far as these free agents is trying to plug those holes, trying to get those positions filled, and then figure out who's going to be, the star of that position or the leader of that position. So I think that's great. As well.
And another theme that we're seeing with all these guys that we're either bringing back or guys that we're bringing in, they're high motor, high energy, high, they're just, effort, high effort. That's what I was worried. High effort guys. The guys that's going to go until the whistle blows, maybe even a little bit after. You're not going to get a whole bunch of guys that's going to kind of dog it on the play or be lazy and stuff like that.
Right.
Pete has a certain thing he's looking for, and you can tell. And I think that motor and effort is in there for every last guy that we bring in.
And that's usually contagious.
Oh my God.
Because if you see a player to your left, to your right, just going at it 100%, you're going to want to do the same thing.
Imagine a whole bunch of guys on defense running around crazy like Mad Max. Like Max is that. And for so long, Max was the only guy out there like that.
The only one.
Now you get 3, 4, 5, 6 guys out there with that same mentality. Now that's how you get one of those defenses that are special, you know? And like you said, it is contagious, because then it's like, okay, a Tyree Wilson who doesn't necessarily have that mentality. now he's sticking out now because it's like everyone else is flying to the ball. Why are you dogging it? Hey, Pete's going to see that, like, if you're going to do that, get off my field, because I got other guys out here that are not going to dog it. I don't care if you're a first round pick.
That's right.
And that's how you build great teams.
Yeah, that's, man. I don't want to say I'm excited, because I'm not excited.
Yeah.
I'm happy that this is happening.
Yeah. It's needed. It's needed.
Yes. I am enjoying seeing these acquisitions. Nothing fancy, nothing exuberant. It's just enough.
Yeah.
Just enough. And obviously, we still have to see what we get in the draft. And then after the draft, there's a lot of players that are let go from other teams. And then we can scoop some of those players up and see how much money we have to work with, and try and solidify our offense and defense at the same time. But okay, we have also Zach Carter, defensive tackle. He was with the team already, correct?
Yeah.
He just got re-signed.
Yeah.
Zach Carter.
He's a guy that's he's a depth piece, a guy that's going to be, rotational. Maybe won't even make the team, but again, another guy that can, bring some competition.
Right.
Because one thing about the defensive end, or the defensive line as a whole, we have a very aggressive and high energy defensive line coach named Robbie Leonard. And probably one of the best D-line coaches in all of the NFL. He'll probably end up being a defensive coordinator within the next year or so. I think he even he actually interviewed for our a defense coordinator position or something, I think. But regardless, he's a guy that's gonna get the most out of people. Any guys that we can bring in, he's gonna get the most out of them. So I'm excited.
That's awesome, man. I hope that all the puzzle pieces are creating this new look for the Raiders. Something that's gonna create an actual team that everybody would want to support.
Yeah, we deserve it. As fans, we deserve it, man.
Definitely. It's been a long time coming. And we definitely want to see this. This upcoming season, not Super Bowl, of course, but at least be competitive.
Yeah. Be something that's at least proud of. Hey, we may have lost, but hey, we fought. The other team knew that they were in a fight. That's all we can expect right now.
Yeah, whenever those games would occur where we would lose by a small margin, but the players gave their all, I wasn't mad.
Same here.
I wasn't mad because it could have been one faulty play or one route run wrong or something, an error. Everybody commits errors, so it's understandable. But to get blown out or just look confused on the field, that doesn't gel.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
All right, the next another player that was re-signed, cornerback Darnay Holmes.
Yeah.
What's up with him? Also, just for competition, or?
So Darnay, he's a guy that plays a specialized position. So he's like our nickel corner. So he's not the corner that plays on the outside, that plays like the bigger receivers. He's the one that plays the slot. With us losing Nate Hobbs, it was important for us to get someone that kind of specializes in the slot. Darnay, he was the one that played quite a bit when Hobbs was out last year with injury. So, we may try to upgrade that position. He showed some good things on film last year. When we were breaking down the game film, again, we could upgrade there, but he's a guy that understands the system. So it's good to have, veterans in there that know the system, that's done it before. So we'll see where we land. He's just one of those guys that, if you have to go out on week one with them, you can do it. But, you also can always look for opportunities to upgrade as well.
So then with him, his re-signing was more for continuity?
Yeah, I would say continuity, and also, you want to at least, because slot corners are tough to find, because not every cornerback can be a slot. You got some guys that can play inside and outside, but then you got some guys who can just play the outside. Like the Namdi Asmoah back in the day. Like he wasn't a guy that could play in the slot, but you put him on the outside, he'll lock you up. And then even Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs was a great nickel corner, but once he moved to the outside, I think it was 1 year, he struggled. So it's not as plug and play like some people think. Like, well, let's just get this corner and put him there. No, there's a select pool of people that are good, that specialize in that slot nickel position.
Gotcha. Well, cool, man. I'm glad they were able to stay with us at least for another year.
Yeah.
Has there been any other acquisitions or re-signings that you've heard of?
No, I think that's pretty much it, man. I mean, we haven't been too active, and a lot of fans, that's have become disgruntled for that reason. So we just kind of got to wait and see. And but yeah, it hasn't been too much going on.
Right. Yeah. The only other I guess information as far as free agents that I heard. Two players that we lost on, which was what's his name, Christian Ellis, the linebacker. We had put a request down to sign him, but I guess because of his contract with New England, they were able to counter and give him more, so he ended up staying. Correct.
Yep. Yeah, they were able to match the offer, and and that was actually surprising. I think a lot of us felt when Monday came, we were going to get the news that he'll be a Raider, but they matched the offer, and people have to remember the Patriots are ran by a defensive-minded guy who was an ex-linebacker, Mike Vrabel. He knows linebackers. He loves the linebacker position. Christian Ellis is one of those guys that is another high motor, loves ball, high effort guy. And Vrabel was like that. So Vrabel is not going to let too many guys like that, just leave his locker room. So it is a little surprising just because they brought in other guys, but I'm not too surprised just knowing Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, their linebacking core is pretty stout then, huh?
Yeah, they got they got Spillane, and that's what I'm saying. Like you don't let guys like that go. Those blue collar, just work, high energy, high effort guys. So, Vrabel knows how to build a team as well. He's done it. He's been, he was part of that blueprint when he played for New England. He was part of some great Ohio State Buckeye teams who really had great linebacker play and understood great defenses. So, he knows that mentality that you need when you're building something special. So, I'm not too surprised, but I did think he was going to slip through the cracks and we were going to get him.
Yeah. And I had heard also about Ellis that he, at this point in his career, if we would have attained him, he would have come in better than Spillane when we first got him.
Probably, yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Because Spillane, I mean, people got to remember Spillane didn't come in with all that. He didn't have the accolades. He didn't have the numbers. He didn't have the production. But Spillane did just have that, as we saw, just that grit to him, that work ethic, that energy and effort. So, and that's why I think our other guy that we got, Roberts, from the Steelers, is going to be a good pick because he's that type of guy as well. So, you again, that Mad Max mentality is contagious. So, you get anyone like that has that type of mentality, they hold themselves accountable and also the ones around them. And that, again, that's how you build great defenses. So, and Mike Vrabel knows that. So, Patrick Graham knows that and understands that. Pete Carroll knows that. He helped orchestrate one of the best defenses we've seen, with that Legion of Boom. So, yeah.
Right. Well, unfortunately, we weren't able to get Ellis, but it is what it is. Now we we got to move on. Can't dwell.
dwell.
Another player that we had our eyes on and we were hoping to pick up was Stephon Diggs, wide receiver. He ended up going to New England as well, right?
He did.
Jesus Christ, man. This has been New England's year.
Yeah.
They're just picking everybody up.
Yeah, Diggs is a guy that some people were kind of offer on with him because he's coming off of injury. Also is kind of known as a diva at times, right. But that kind of comes with the territory of a receiver. Receivers, right. They want the ball, they think they're always open, they think they're always right. Right. They're kind of like a wife, man. Think they're always right. Right. You can't win an argument with them, but no, he's. Yeah, we lost him. They paid him, I think, 3 years, $69 million. So they gave him some money. But honestly, I like Diggs. I really do. If he can keep his head on straight. Talented. And honestly, I know a lot of Raider Nation, absolutely despises Josh McDaniels. I personally don't. But he's a guy that would work very good in Josh McDaniels' system because you can put him anywhere on the field, and that's the kind of guy that Josh can scheme open, and they got a good young quarterback over there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Diggs kind of have a bounce back year.
Oh, again, good for him, bad for us. Yeah. But now I've been hearing some rumors that I guess the next best wide receiver that we should look into was either Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper. Yeah. What are your thoughts on those wide receivers? And which one would you pick?
See, it's tough, man. Keenan Allen is good, a little older, but when he's healthy, like if we got a healthy Keenan Allen, that would be good. But that's a big if.
Right.
Amari Cooper is, he's healthy for the most part. See, Amari, the thing with Amari, he's so super talented. He just lacks that dog mentality, at least for me personally.
Right.
And I always have an issue with that. So, sometimes it seems like he's not giving the effort, and he just, I don't know. Some about Amari Cooper is just off-putting for me, but the boy can play. The boy can play. Right. So, if we can get him at a decent price, I'll take it. He's not going to be a headache. He's not going to be a diva. So, that's a good thing. So we'll see.
Now, do you think there is any possibility that we can get them both?
Keenan Allen and it's possible. I think it'll be kind of expensive. Right. But then again, they are aging vets. So, they can't, demand the money that they once did. And Keenan's coming off an injury. I mean, it's possible because our wide receiver room is struggling. But I don't see, and I don't getting both because you want to, you probably want to bring in one veteran. We also got, we still have Jacoby Myers over there. He's a veteran, but you also want to bring in some young blood as well. Some guys that got that high energy that can still run, still got them young legs, man. We can't have guys with legs like me and you out there trying to make plays, man.
No, man. I'm good for one play.
That's
it. I'm done.
We need someone like yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, let's hope and see if we can get at least one of the top free agent wide receivers to fill that hole, and obviously get some more during the draft. Yeah. We do have a lot of holes to fill, though. Yeah. So I don't know. I definitely know wide receiver number one is priority, but then also we haven't really acknowledged the offensive line.
Yeah, we haven't.
What's good in having all these weapons if you have no one to protect them?
True.
So that's where I'm kind of conflicted with the free agency, is that they definitely bolstered or added some depth into the defense, but they haven't really addressed the offensive line. And if they want to, obviously they're doing the whole defense thing to stop the opposing teams, especially stopping Mahomes, because we got to see that fool twice a year. So I totally understand that, but at the same time, you have to score. Yeah. And we saw last year we weren't scoring, and we need to give our quarterback, our running backs, our wide receivers, our tight ends, that time for them to get open, to be able to work their magic. So do you think that position or those positions, the offensive line, will be mostly addressed through free agency?
So there's different phases of free agency. So now we're kind of at the phase now where it's so close to the draft. You know, there's a lot of players that are waiting, or even teams that want to wait until after the draft, and then they can kind of fill their roster in after that. And then some, you know, even some representation from the players, you know, their agents, you know, prefer to kind of wait to after the draft to see, you know, how the dust settles, and it's like, okay, now we can kind of talk again, because, you know, my client's still the number one receiver. You still need a receiver. You couldn't get the guy you wanted in the draft. Now let's talk. So yeah, so I think right now we just have to be patient. You know, I think, you know, everything's kind of waiting on the draft, and then once that draft happens, then you'll see, you know, some guys start getting signed again. But, you know, it'll probably be pretty quiet, you know, here until, you know, next month, I think.
Yeah, because also it has to do a lot with the financials, right? They don't want to, like, because I know the Raiders are sitting on, what is it, like 50 million or something like that?
Yeah.
For free agent pickups.
Yep.
And I know they don't want to just spend all that money now, and then come post draft, they don't have enough money to actually pick up more players that are needed.
Yeah, because again, after the draft, you know, teams are going to cut players, because I mean, some teams are going to draft players that they didn't think that they were going to be there. They're like, oh shoot, we drafted him, this is an upgrade from what we have, or this is you know, a better financial situation where, hey, we can let go of this veteran, and that veteran that they let go, hey, that might be an upgrade for us. You know, we might be able to use them for a year or so. So it's all you know, it's all strategy. So, you know, it's we just gotta be patient as fans, and kind of, you know, it's important just to understand the big picture and the big phases of all this. You know, as casual fans, we just get upset. Hey, how come we're not, you know, we came in here with $100 million, and how come we're not getting the best players available? I mean, you can't do that, especially when you want to pay Max Crosby what we paid him, you know?
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to tell you. We actually did pay our best player available.
Exactly.
We're going to keep him we're going to have him at least for 5 years.
What free agent was better than Max Crosby?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that was actually one of the greatest moves. And then at the time that they did it, he was the first one that got paid. He held the record for like what, 3-4 days?
2-3 days. Yeah.
The teams that signed their stars after Max Crosby had to pay, exactly. So I think that was a great move by the organization to get Max paid, get him here for the long term, and save us some money.
For sure.
You know, and speaking of which, Christian Wilkins, his contract got restructured, correct?
Yeah, it did.
And that gave us, what was it, in the like teens, like 12 million,
something
13
like
million?
I don't know the exact number, but yeah, it gave us a nice little cushion, man. So and again, that's good, because you always gotta be strategic when you're restructuring contracts, because again, you know, from our level, you know, a casual fan level, you know, we're just like, oh, how come we just don't do that to everybody? You know, just restructure. Right. Now, when we restructure, you know, it doesn't just free up space. It's not like the money just goes away. You're literally just restructuring. Right. You're kind of just kicking the can down the road.
Just moving it back.
Yeah, and we've gotten in trouble with that in the past, where, you know, we're paying guys that haven't been on the team for 3 years just because we restructured. So you just got to be careful with that.
The 49ers did that, correct?
Oh yeah, they do it quite a bit. The Saints did it a whole lot, you know, during
they're in trouble right now,
like
right?
They're still paying for guys that were there, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, and we got in trouble with that, you know, during the Gruden years, when we got some guys that, you know, we were paying. You know, I forgot we had so much dead cap, you know, one year, of guys that were just like retired, weren't on the team. They were sitting at home eating popcorn, making millions. So you just gotta be careful. But salute to Christian Wilkins, and freed up some space for us.
And you know, with Christian Wilkins, is the only thing we know as Raider fans of him is what he did in Miami.
Yeah, exactly.
We still haven't seen what he can do for our team.
Yep.
We're going based on past production. So like for me, being again, a casual Raider fan, as far as like the X's and O's of football, to me, it's kind of like, okay, we're giving this dude so much money, but then he got hurt all last year, and then we're restructuring his contract. So he must be really good.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm still not convinced.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be convinced once he sets foot on the field and actually does what everybody say he's gonna do.
You know, the funny thing is, you know, when I was at the game with you, I think that was the game that when we hung, 'cause I think we hung around a little bit, like until they kicked us out, if I remember right. But I remember Wilkins, he came back. I don't know if you remember, or I don't know if you were there at that time, but like it was like after the game, we won the game, and he like was doing like sprints across the. Were you there? You were there, I think, weren't you? And it was just like I just remember like, because he had a good game that game, and I just remember seeing it's like he seemed like he was in good spirits, like, you know, like being a leader, like he was out there doing more. Like we just won the game, and he was out there barefoot. You know, running sprints by himself, like, you know, like that's a mentality of a champion, man. And, you know, it's just, you know, and for whatever reason, he was out there doing it. You know, and unfortunately he got hurt like a game or two after that. But I just remember that game, he started kind of picking it up a little bit, and we're like, okay, that's why we signed him. You know, that right there. So I'm excited for him. He's still one of the best interior linemen in the league. So Raider fans, you know, we're just waiting to see that. You know, we're waiting to see that investment pay off. Yeah,
I guess I'm just skewed by having so many.
Every right to be, man.
Where I'm like, man, we're giving this dude so much money. He still hasn't proven much to us on the field. So, you know, but based on what I've heard from you guys in the war room, you know, it gives me like a positive feeling to know that, you know, he's coming back, you know, Max is coming back, you know, our Kuntz is going to come back. Our defense is going to be a really good defense. But I'm still like, okay, but what if they get hurt again?
You have every right, man. Every right. We have been burnt so many times. Like, if something bad can happen, we'll find a way. So,
You know, I'm just what is it? Pessimistically optim.
You have every right, man.
Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Yeah. So, but you know, it's good that we got him back. Now, let me ask you another player, Geno Smith. You know, we got him. He's with the Raiders. There was talk about restructuring his contract, but nothing has happened. Do you fear that they're just maybe going to use him for 1 year, and then we pick up a quarterback in the draft and they're going to let him go? Or are they just, again, waiting until after the draft, see how much money they have, what needs they have to fill, and then kind of work it then?
Yeah, you know, it is kind of that, you know, they didn't restructure, or not restructure, but extend. Me personally, I'm okay with it because, you know, I think bringing Geno in, I always thought of him as like a bridge guy. You know, I never really thought of him as, you know, a long-term solution at quarterback. You know, I know a lot of people kind of look at some of the stats and, you know, but I try not to get too caught up in that. You know, I think Geno is who Geno is, and he's, to me, you know, a mid quarterback. You know, I know people are trying to make him out to being like the next Elway, you know, or whatever, you know, and it's like, I get it. We're Raider fans. We like to big people up. But yeah, I mean, that could be a strategy, because Geno could have want more money than what, you know, we think he's worth. You know, I think that that Sam Darnold contract kind of skewed things a little bit, because Sam Darnold didn't get as much as, you know, what a lot of professionals thought he was going to get. So therefore, that kind of messed up what Geno could probably ask for, because Geno was probably thinking, hey, you know, I want to be able to get, you know, this much money. But then the Raiders are like, well, hold on, Darnold just got this much money. There's a slight gap there. So we'll see. You know, I without being behind the scenes, it's hard to tell, but it is interesting. It does leave the door open for us to say, hey, you know, where we're at pick 6, this may be a chance to get a quarterback. If Shador's there, do we pull the trigger on him and let Gino kind of mentor him for a year and then give Shador the keys? So there's there's a few schools of thought when it comes to this.
Because I'm thinking if let's say, for example, the Raiders do only use him for 1 year, with basically what his contract is for, his existing contract, and we do get, a quarterback. At least in my eyes, the way I see it, I don't really think we have the need for Geno Smith to basically be like a mentor to our young quarterback, because we have Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Do you think that is kind of like a valid way of thinking, that we really truly don't need him as kind of like a mentor, more just as a filler for now until our young quarterback is ready to go?
Yeah. I mean, having Brady is great, as long as, but at the end of the day, Brady's an owner, Brady's also an analyst. However, being part owner, you really want to protect your investment. So, he could, take a interest of really helping mentor, but you can only do so much, without being on the team. There's, it's something about having a mentor that's sitting in every meeting with you, your locker's next to his and things like that. So, having that type of mentor is important as well.
Yeah, because he, like Gino would be more hands-on.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd be at all the meetings and all the practices. Got you. Oh, cool, man. Yeah, I'm happy that we have Geno Smith. It's he seems to be a good bridge quarterback. Based on what I've seen, his highlight reels from Seattle. He has still some mobility for his age. He has a great arm.
He does.
He can do it. I'm just hoping that everything works out and he doesn't come in disgruntled and, just be like, oh, you guys don't want to give me an extension, then I'm just going to give you, 50% or 75% of what I can do, but, well, that's it for Chris's weekly word. If you guys have any questions that you guys want us to cover, or have any news or tidbits that you guys want us to incorporate in Chris's weekly word, please hit Chris or myself up, and we will gladly incorporate them in the next episode, because we definitely want to hear from you guys, because this is just information that I'm getting off the net and getting off of other shows to bring to you guys. But obviously I don't know what you guys are thinking or what you guys are seeing. So let us know, hit us up, social media. We're on all platforms. Check down here. You could just message us. Let us know. We're readily available to take your questions. Our next segment, is going to be a new segment, which is called Football 101. This is for individuals like myself that understand football on the visual side, what we see on TV, what we see on the field, not the true X's and O's like Chris, Severe, and 805, Cheeto, and all those guys, that depth. So what we want to do in this segment is kind of give some information on particular types of things that go on within the team that we probably don't see or don't understand. And this week's topic is basically the importance of player depth. Can you give us a brief, explanation of what player depth is, Chris?
Yeah, so player depth is, making sure you just don't have quality, at the top of your depth chart. So when I talk about depth charts, like at each position, you have, a quarterback, which is Geno Smith, and then under him you'll have, Aiden O'Connell, and under him Carter Bradley or whatever. So in each position, there's guys under the stars that come in, whether someone gets hurt and things like that. So having that, the proper depth is making sure that you get those rotational guys, you get those guys that, we've, talked about today, the tight end and the defensive tackle, in case someone gets hurt. For instance, last year we got hit with the injury bug pretty bad.
Yes.
Malcolm Kuntz, He gets hurt, 2 days before the opening kickoff. Luckily, we were able to get some depth pieces like a Shason and some other guys that were able to come in, and he played well, and he actually earned himself another contract. So, it's just basically making sure you are building your team, not just top heavy. So where like one or two injuries can't just cripple you all the way. The reason that having, that depth importance is, you want to have that next man up mentality. You want to be able to say, hey, Jacoby Myers, you got injured, knock on wood. Hey, we got it. We got depth. We got some other guys that can come in here and play. And plus fatigue management. Guys get tired. I know a lot of us like playing the video games and Madden, and those guys can play. But in real life, these big boys get tired. A guy that's 339, he can't play every snap. You gotta have a rotation. Right. So when you bring someone else in, you want a guy who you don't see a big production level fall off. So. Gotcha. And also, the biggest thing, like I said, injury insurance, fatigue management, and plus matchup flexibility. You play different types of teams. Hey, if I'm playing a team that runs a lot, hey, I might go it deeper in my depth chart. I'm bringing some of them big boys up. I'm bringing some of them big 330-pound guys up this week because I know we're playing, a team that likes to run the ball and all that stuff. So, it's just a lot of... it's just strategic way to build your franchise. And that's what the good teams do. They have that depth just in case, you got to be prepared for anything.
Yeah, prepare for the worst.
Exactly.
Hope for the best.
Absolutely.
Now, let me ask you, as far as the depth in every position, is it pretty equally distributed, or is there more depth in particular positions, less in other positions?
Yeah. So I would say, you get positions like linebackers, corners, safeties, running back, those type positions are good on special teams as well. A lot of times on your special teams, you're not going to put a Max Crosby out there. So, you're going to make sure that, you have the proper depth on certain positions, those guys that are athletic, bigger, stronger, faster, that can do different things. Those are the positions that you may keep a little extra on your depth chart to be able to cover, some of that. So to answer your question, yep.
Okay, yeah, because I've noticed, at least with the Raiders, there's some positions like I've seen in years past where we carry 4 running backs.
Right.
And then we'll have just, I don't know, top of my head, like 3 tackles.
Yeah.
And 2 of some other position. And it's kind of like, okay, well, why isn't it even? I understand that some positions are a bit more, there's more contact, there's more possibility of injury, and others aren't. But you can have a cornerback or a safety running and he can tear something or twist something, and you definitely need to have that have the next man up come in and continue playing. And like you're mentioning, I didn't really think of this as playing to your opponent's strengths.
Yep.
Because some are run heavy teams where they run the ball, throw very little. Others pass the ball. All the time. Some have a good mix. Some incorporate a lot of tight end. Others, they do a lot of wideouts. So it just all varies. And I didn't really think of that until you mentioned it right now. And I hope Raider Nation, this type of information is actually helping you out.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like if you pay attention, you'll see like a couple days before the game. You'll see, the Raiders activated so-and-so, so it's like, hey, if I know we're playing the Miami Dolphins, which is, a pass first team, they like to spread it out and pass, then, hey, I'm not going to have a lot of the big boys activated. I'm going to bring up some extra DBs, because they're going to run a lot of spreads. So, I might have to be in the dime set where, I got 4 corners and 2 safeties out there, or, things like that. So, or if it's a running heavy team, hey, I might bring some more linebackers up and not as much corners. So, Again, it's a very strategic game. A lot of times they try to simplify it, but there's so many layers upon layers of what has to happen.
Right.
So that's why some of those moves are made.
And does a practice squad also fill depth?
So that they are considered depth, but they're not part of like the depth chart, or they're not part of the official team. But you still keep those guys on the, in the practice squad that you can call up. There's guys that, you never know when you have to call somebody up. So, just like the, Tim Johnson, hopefully you guys had a chance to see my interview that I had with him. He's a former Raider linebacker.
Great interview, by the way,
thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, he when he started with the Raiders, he was on the practice squad for the first, 10, 11 weeks. Then he got activated, like mid-season, or a little bit past mid-season. And, he ended up being a very key special teams guy, even got a big punt block in the Super Bowl that we actually got a touchdown on. So, it's all, again, it's all about, having, that roster flexibility,
Right. So like if you were the head coach and seeing the Raiders, the team that we have now, how would you address depth? Like where would you start first? Would you follow basically what our coaching staff is doing now, or would you do something different?
I would probably be a tad bit more aggressive. But then again, it depends on what my strategy is, and how I feel about the team. Now, he may feel that he may have a little higher feeling on guys we already have on our roster, whereas me, I'm thinking we can upgrade quite a bit in areas. So, we talked about it earlier. I think I would look at that offensive line like,
Right.
I know we brought in a guard, but, I think we need to look at, bringing some more people in for either competition or upgrading or whatever. So the receiver position, I know we're not done with that. We haven't really brought anyone in, but that receiver room is very bad. I won't say bad, it's very light.
Right.
So that linebacker room, very light. I probably would have been more aggressive, but then again, I still want to be, I like their approach of being smart with the money. So, I'd probably have a tad bit of that as well, but probably just a little bit more aggressive if there's guys out there that I like.
Awesome. Well, Raider Nation, that is our new segment, Football 101. Again, this week was the importance of depth. We will have other topics coming in the next shows. Again, if you guys are interested in knowing a particular aspect of football, even of the Raiders themselves, it doesn't have to be the positions or the players or whatnot, just, something in general that has to do with football. Again, let us know, reach out. Contact us on social media. We will definitely like to incorporate it into our next episode. Like to answer all your questions as much as possible, because remember, what we're doing is for you. We're getting this information for you to understand what our team is actually doing and what we're hoping to have, meaning a great team in the near future. All right, Chris. Well, that's all the information that we got. Let the nation know what you got going, my brother.
Man. As you guys know, man, got my my show every Tuesday and Sunday, the Raider War Room, with my guy Severe and my guy 805 Raider. So we're really picking that up every Sunday up until the draft. We do mock drafts, which is very entertaining, for people that get a chance to watch that show. All three of us do our mock draft, and we kind of compare and rank it and stuff like that. So it's always a good time, just talking ball with those guys. Again, I have my show, definitely just make sure you guys subscribe to me, because I also am doing interviews. So make sure you set your bell notifications once you subscribe, because I've been dropping a lot of content. I've been cutting up the interview that I did with Tim Johnson. Again, it's a good opportunity to kind of get behind the scenes of like what was going on during the Super Bowl year. A lot of us kind of think about like, I wonder about this. I wonder Like I actually have had the opportunity to talk to guys on that Super Bowl team that can give us stories that a lot of times we don't have access to. So, and I really want Raider Nation to kind of dig into, these interviews that I'm doing a little bit more, so we understand, because people always get pissed off about that Super Bowl. Why did we get beat? Why did we pass so much and not run? Hey, I got these interviews of guys that were on that team telling their reasonings on what they think it was. So, don't hesitate to subscribe to me, because me as a content creator, I'm one of those guys that's my lane, and I want to continue to grow in that. I have interviews with the Stu Swaggart. I have interviews with Bruce Grakowski, with Hugh Jackson, the last coach that Al Davis hired, guy that told in-depth stories about, the day when Al Davis died, the day up until Al Davis died, his last conversation with Al Davis. Things like that us fans usually don't get a chance to know. Like I'm bringing this to light for you guys, and you can find that type of stuff on my channel. So don't hesitate to subscribe, man. I'm gonna continue to bring quality content to you guys like that.
Definitely. If you guys haven't subscribed to Chris, right after this episode, please go do so, because he does have some amazing shows, amazing interviews, and even with the War Room, they have some great information. It's very entertaining as well. It's not just talking about football and being all serious. They have fun as well.
We do.
They have fun. Occasionally they get drunk, which is awesome. But then right now, I believe you guys are doing mock drafts. So that's always good to see the different perspectives of 3 different individuals that know football, and see what they might be doing, or the Raiders might be doing, as far as picking up players during the draft. So Raider Nation, also don't forget, we have this show's probably gonna drop Saturday. So Friday, 8:05's interview with myself, with the Raider Nation Roll Call, will be out. Please go check it out as well after this episode. It's a fire episode. 8:05 is amazing. Okay. My brother, salute. Thank you for your time. You had a great interview. We talked some good stuff, football, family, life. It was great. So go on, check that out. Also, I have another Raider Nation Roll Call episode that I just recorded this week with TMBC, the Nation Booster Club, which is my booster club. We're having a major event coming next month in April 4th through the 6th, I believe, in Arlington, Texas. It's the Texas Takeover by TMBC. A lot of super fans are going to be there. There's going to be a big barbecue, a lot of vendors, music. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check that episode out. That one's going to drop, I believe, Tuesday. Just giving information on what the event is about. And if I know it's going to be short time or short notice, but hopefully you guys can attend next year. Or if you're in the Arlington area, go check it out. It's family friendly. It's a really good time. Check out the episodes dropping Monday or Tuesday. Haven't decided the date yet. And again, I am in the works with MC Raider to start the Stogie Nation podcast. We are actually our first episode. We might do it next week. We have some Hawaiian cigars that I brought from a vacation I took some months ago. We're going to review those. And then we have MC Raider reached out to a Nicaraguan tobacco company. It's called Every Day is a Cigar Day. We're going to have an interview with them from Nicaragua, and us obviously here. And we're going to talk about their cigars and, kind of smoke them and review them at the same time. So, we got a lot of stuff coming up for you. Again, we got Severe coming up. We got Regulator coming up from TNBC. A lot of super fans and a lot of booster clubs and a lot of content creators that we're going to be interviewing. If you're a content creator, super fan, booster club, even a business, if you sell Raider products, hit me up, let me know. I would love to interview. I would like to put you out there, let the Raider Nation know about you and how you support the Raider Nation. So again, Raider Nation, thank you for being with us, Chris. Thanks for being with us again. And remember, everything we do is for the nation. By the nation.
Peace.
Raider, let's go.